The Velcrin survey ship descended through Earth's atmosphere on a bright Tuesday morning, though no one was left to call it that. Commander Zeph stood at the observation deck, his silver, tinted eyes scanning the planet below. 300 years had passed since the Velcrin collective had visited this world, and the memory still stung. Back then, humanity had been primitive, noisy, dangerous to themselves and everything around them. The collective's High Council had made the decision swiftly quarantine Earth, mark it as a hazard zone, and leave the humans to their own inevitable destruction. Zeph remembered the debates, the certainty in every counselor's voice. Humanity would never survive another century with their wars, their pollution, their reckless disregard for their own planet. "Sir, we're detecting something unusual," Lieutenant Karras said from her station. Her head, tendrils twitched with concern. "The atmospheric readings. They're wrong." "Wrong how?" Zeph moved closer to examine her console. "Cleaner. Much cleaner than our records indicate. Carbon levels are down 70% from our last visit. The ocean temperatures have stabilized. And sir," she paused, her tendrils going still, "there's vegetation where our maps show desert." Zeph felt a cold weight settle in his chest. "Show me visual confirmation." The main screen flickered to life, displaying what should have been the ruins of a human city. Instead, Zeph saw towers of gleaming metal and glass rising from forests so thick they seemed to swallow the horizon. Rivers ran clear and blue between them. The architecture was elegant, purposeful. Nothing like the chaotic sprawl humanity had built in their industrial age. But the cities were empty. "Life signs?" Zeph asked quietly. "None, sir. No humans, no animals larger than insects. Just plants. Everywhere." They landed in what their records identified as North America, in a place once called New York. The landing struts settled onto a plaza of smooth white stone, unmarked by age or weather. Zeph led the landing party out, breathing apparatus secured despite the surprisingly clean air. The silence hit him first. No engines, no voices, no rumble of human civilization. Just wind moving through leaves, and the distant call of birds that shouldn't exist in such numbers. "This building." Karras gestured to a tower that rose 50 stories above them. Its surface covered in living vines that seemed to grow in deliberate patterns. The structural integrity is perfect. "It's been maintained." "By what?" another team member asked. "There's nothing here." They entered through doors that opened smoothly, powered by something still running after 3 centuries. Inside, the lobby was a garden. Trees grew from the floor, their roots visible through transparent panels that showed complex irrigation systems below. Sunlight filtered through a ceiling that seemed to capture and distribute it with impossible efficiency. Karras approached a wall panel that still glowed with soft light. She touched it, and text appeared in perfect Velcrin script. "They knew we'd come back," she whispered. Zeph read the message, his blood running coldy. "To the Velcrin collective, you were right to fear us. We were destroying our home, drowning in our own mistakes. Your quarantine gave us the gift of isolation, the final push we needed to change or die. We chose to change. We cleaned our skies. We healed our oceans. We learned to live with our planet instead of against it. We built cities that breathe, machines that thought, and finally, ships that could carry us to the stars. We left Earth not as refugees fleeing a dying world, but as gardeners leaving behind a masterpiece. This planet is our monument, our apology, our gift to the universe. We've seeded it with caretaker systems that will maintain it for 10,000 years. Perhaps longer. We hope you'll forgive us for not staying. We had so much to see, so many worlds to explore, so many civilizations to meet as equals rather than subjects to be quarantined. We hope the collective is still out there. We hope you're still exploring, still learning, still growing. And we hope that, when we finally meet again among the stars, you'll see us not as the children you abandoned, but as the neighbors you inadvertently helped create. We'll be waiting. Humanity. The date stamp showed they'd left Earth 2 years ago. Zeph stood in that impossible garden, surrounded by technology his people still couldn't fully comprehend, and felt the weight of the collective's mistake crushing down on him. They hadn't just misjudged humanity. They'd abandoned the one species that might have been their equal, their partner in exploring the cosmos. Sir. Karis's voice shook. I'm detecting energy signatures in orbit. Old satellites, but not just satellites. They're moving. Repositioning. Defensive systems. No, sir. I think they're cameras. I think they're watching us, DOS. Somewhere out there among the stars. Humanity was building something the collective had never imagined. And Earth, beautiful and empty and perfect, sat waiting like a test the Velcrin had already failed. Zeph ordered his team to spread out and document everything. The survey would take days, maybe weeks. But every moment on Earth revealed another layer of humanity's transformation. He needed to understand what had happened here. Needed to bring proof back to the High Council that their greatest mistake hadn't been quarantining humanity, but forgetting about them entirely. In what their records called Central Park, Karis discovered the first archive. It stood in a clearing, a simple structure of crystal and steel that hummed with stored power. When she activated it, holographic images bloomed in the air around them, showing humanity's journey from the brink of collapse to whatever they had become. The recordings began 70 years after the quarantine. A woman stood in a ruined city, her clothes dirty, her face gaunt. Behind her, smoke rose from burning buildings. Day 20, 6 of the resource wars, she said into the camera. We're killing each other over water now. Over clean air. I think the aliens were right about us. We're a virus destroying our own host. The next recording jumped forward 5 years. The same woman, older now, stood in front of a massive construction project. Workers in protective suits assembled what looked like enormous air filters. We had a choice, she said. Fighting over the scraps, or work together to make more. Most of us chose to live. Some didn't. We mourn them, but we can't stop building. Zeph watched decades compress into minutes. The filters multiplied, became networks, evolved into something that merged with the ecosystem, rather than dominating it. Humanity learned to engineer plants that could break down pollutants, bacteria that could clean water, insects that could rebuild soil. They didn't just stop damaging Earth. They actively healed it. They turned themselves into a planetary immune system, Karis said softly. They made their entire civilization symbiotic with their world. The recordings showed humanity's cities transforming. Buildings that generated more energy than they consumed. Transportation systems that left no waste. Food production that enriched soil instead of depleting it. And through it all, the humans themselves changed. Not their bodies, but their thinking. They showed conflict, yes. Disagreements and debates that sometimes turned bitter. But the recordings revealed a species that had learned to argue without destroying, to compete without consuming, to grow without taking. Sir, you need to see this. One of the other team members called from across the archive. He stood before a hologram displaying a star map, but unlike any the Velcrin had ever created. Thousands of markers dotted the space between stars, with lines connecting them in an intricate web. What am I looking at? Zeph asked. Humanity's expansion route. They didn't just leave Earth, sir. They've been out there for 60 years. And if this map is accurate... He paused, adjusting the display. They've made contact with 17 different species. Established what they call friendship stations in 12 systems. And sir, 3 of those systems are collective protectorates. Zeph's hands trembled. That's impossible. We would have detected them. Would we? Look at their technology here. Everything is designed to work with natural systems, not against them. Their ships probably look like asteroids or cosmic debris to our sensors. They've been flying right past us. Karis pulled up another recording, this one more recent. A man in a dark blue uniform stood on what appeared to be a ship's bridge. Behind him, stars streamed past at velocities that shouldn't be possible with conventional drives. Captain's log. Humanity vessel Wanderer, he said. We've just departed from the Kresh homeworld. After a successful first contact. They were surprised to meet us. Said they'd heard stories about a quarantine species in Sector 7. But assumed we'd destroyed ourselves. We spent 3 months teaching them our ecological restoration techniques. In exchange, they shared their mathematics. Beautiful people, the Kresh. They remind us that intelligence comes in so many forms. He smiled, and there was something in that expression that made Zeph's chest tighten. Pride, yes, but also humility. Sometimes I wonder if the Velcrin quarantine was the best thing that ever happened to us. It forced us to look inward before we looked outward. To fix ourselves before we tried to fix the galaxy. I hope we meet them someday. I'd like to say thank you. The recording ended. Zeph stood in silence, surrounded by the evidence of everything the collective had lost. They'd spent 3 centuries assuming humanity had died or stagnated behind their quarantine barrier. Instead, humanity had been building friendships, sharing knowledge, spreading across the stars like seeds on the wind. Commander, Karis said gently. What do we tell the council? Zeph looked at the empty garden, city surrounding them, at the archive that humanity had left specifically for the Velcrin to find. They'd known. Somehow. They'd known that the collective would eventually return, would eventually wonder. What had become of the species they'd written off as doomed? We tell them the truth, Zeph said. We tell them we were wrong. And then we ask them how we're going to find humanity again. Because we have 300 years of apologies to make. The Velcrin High Council chamber had stood for 2,000 years, a monument to the collective's wisdom and careful governance. Today, it felt like a tomb. Zeph stood at the central platform, surrounded by the holographic forms of council members from across their territory. Above him, images from Earth rotated slowly, each one a reminder of their failure. Council Speaker. Thren regarded him with eyes that had seen 5 centuries of decisions. Her scaled skin caught the light as she leaned forward. You're asking us to believe that the humans we abandoned have become a spacefaring civilization that surpasses our own in some respects. Not asking. Speaker. Showing. Zeph gestured, and another hologram appeared. The garden cities. The clean oceans. The archive footage of humanity's transformation. They didn't just survive our quarantine. They used it. While we moved on to other projects, other species, they rebuilt themselves from the ground up. And now they're out there somewhere. Counselor Vex said, his voice dripping with skepticism. Making friends with species we've protected for generations. Sharing technology we haven't approved. This is exactly why we quarantine dangerous civilizations, Commander. They're unpredictable. They're not dangerous. Karis interjected from beside Zeph. At least, not anymore. Every species they've contacted reports the same thing. Humanity offers knowledge freely, asks for nothing but conversation in return. They've helped the Kresh clean their polluted moons. They've taught the Dreth new agricultural methods that ended a famine. They're not conquering, Counselor. They're gardening. Thren's expression remained unreadable. You've brought us proof of human achievement. But achievement and wisdom are not the same. We quarantined them because they were self-destructive, violent, short-sighted. Have they truly changed? Or have they simply learned to hide those traits better? Zeph had expected this question. He pulled up the final recording from the archive, one he'd saved for this moment. A young human woman appeared, barely into adulthood. She sat in what looked like a classroom, surrounded by children of various species. Human, yes, but also Kresh, Dreth, and others the Velcrin had never encountered. History lesson time, the woman said cheerfully. Today we're talking about humanity's darkest period. The resource wars, the mass extinctions, the time when we almost destroyed our own planet. The children settled down, their attention fixed on her. We don't teach this because we're proud of it. We teach it because forgetting our mistakes means we'll repeat them. Every human child learns about the wars, about the species we drove extinct, about the oceans we poisoned and the air we fouled. We carry those scars not as shame, but as responsibility. One of the human children raised a hand. Teacher, Maya, why did the Velcrin leave us alone? Maya's smile turned sad. Because they looked at us and saw a species that couldn't be saved. And you know what? They were probably right. We couldn't be saved by anyone but ourselves. The quarantine hurt, but it also gave us space to grow without interference, without anyone else fixing our problems for us. Sometimes the kindest thing someone can do is let you face your own consequences. A Kresh child spoke up, their voice whistling through translator implants. Do you hate the Velcrin for abandoning you? Hate them? Maya seemed genuinely surprised. No. We understand them. They made a logical choice based on the evidence they had. We were a mess. If anything, we're grateful. The quarantine taught us the most important lesson any species can learn, that the universe doesn't owe us anything. Not rescue, not second chances, not forgiveness. Everything we have, we had to earn. Every friendship we've made, we had to prove we deserved. That's made us better. The recording ended. Silence filled the council chamber. They're teaching their children to be grateful for our rejection. Thren said quietly. That's embarrassing. Vex finished. It should be. We abandoned them to die, and they turned it into a growth opportunity. Now they're out there being better than we are. Not better. Zeph corrected. Different. They learned lessons we never had to. We've had the benefit of stability, of slow, guided growth. They had to change fast or die. That created something unique. Something the galaxy needs. Thren was silent for a long moment, her ancient eyes studying the images from Earth. Finally, she spoke. What do you recommend, Commander? Zeph had prepared for this too. We send out a message on all frequencies. Not an apology, not yet. Just an invitation. We tell humanity that the collective wants to meet them again, as equals this time. We ask them to come home to Earth for a summit. And then, he paused, choosing his words carefully. We learn from them the way they once hoped to learn from us, Daw. And if they refuse? Vex asked. If they've moved beyond us, beyond any desire to reconnect. Then we'll know we lost something irreplaceable, Karis said. And we'll have to live with that. But at least we'll have tried. At least we'll have acknowledged our mistake. Thren looked around the chamber, at the other council members. Zeph saw doubt, pride, fear, and something that might have been hope flickering across their faces. Finally, Thren raised her hand. Al in favor of extending an invitation to humanity. One by one, hands rose. Not all of them, but enough. It's decided then, Thren said. Draft your message, Commander Zeph. Let's see if the children we abandoned will speak to us again. As the council session ended, and the holograms faded, Zeph stood in the empty chamber with Karis. Above them, Earth still rotated, beautiful and waiting. Do you think they'll come? Karis asked. Zeph remembered. The recordings. The woman teaching children about gratitude. The captain thanking the collective for their mistake. I think they will, he said. Not because they need us, but because they're curious. And because they remember what it's like to be alone. 3 weeks later, the message went out across the galaxy. It was simple, humble, and honest. The Velcrin Collective invited humanity to return to Earth for a meeting. No demands, no conditions. Just a request for conversation between two civilizations that had taken very different paths to the stars. The response came in 6 days. Humanity Vessel Wanderer to Velcrin Collective. Invitation received and accepted. We're already on our way. And please, don't worry about apologies. We have so much to share with you. So many stories to tell. We'll see you soon, old friends. We'll see you soon. In the garden cities of Earth. The caretaker systems activated something new. Lights began to glow in windows that had been dark for decades. Fountains sprang to life. The planet that humanity had healed and left behind began to prepare for the reunion it had always known would come. and in the space between stars, humanity